How's it going, everybody, and welcome back. We are starting off the day by hiding in my car because it's currently pouring rain outside, so not a great start to the day. However, we did get a package from Yonaka, so it's gonna be a pretty good day. Yeah, let's go check out what we got, guys. I'm very excited. I know exactly what it is, and it is perfect for my BMW. So let's go see what we got, guys. All right, guys, so we just got home. This is our package, and bam, Yonaka. We got some beautiful rad and some rad fans. Let's take a look what we got. This thing is beautiful. So it comes with a new shroud here. It's got all the ports we need. Wow. Good old Yonaka. Love it. This thing is amazing. Full disclosure, I did have this thing open once before, so that is not how it came packaged. This thing was actually wrapped up really well, so please excuse that. But other than that, we got two new electric fans instead of the single. A nice aluminum shroud. It fits really nicely, really tight. We got our mounting bolt there, our two ports at the bottom, a new drain petcock. This thing's really nice. Same design as factory. It does have the removable shroud, so that is nice. It's going to be two bolts here on opposite sides, and then it slides up and out. So that's really nice. I can tell you guys this is a little thicker than factory, so that's going to be really helpful for the cooling, especially if you have performance mods, which I do. So that is beautiful. I'm very excited, so let's throw this thing in. And of course, once again, thank you, Yonaka, for hooking me up with all the swag in the world. We got shirts, hats, lanyards, decals, license plate bracket. That's beauty. So jumping right into it, this is a pretty straightforward job. Now, honestly, mine is not factory, but it's very similar to any other setup you guys will have. And while I'm in here, I am also doing my rad hoses as well, so that's not a bad idea if you guys are going to be doing this rad. So basically the process is we're going to remove our intake here, which may go to a factory air box, remove the rad fan, and then basically drain the coolant, rip it out. So this rad is for the 335 and 135s with the N54, and I believe possibly the N55 engine. Very important also, before you start working on the cooling system, you want to make sure that your engine is nice and cool. You want to make sure you have no pressure in this upper hose. So we do have a bit of pressure, so we do have to let this cool down because I don't feel like wearing some boiling hot coolant. Your next step would be to remove your reservoir cap here, again, just to ensure there is no pressure. When you do that, make sure you stand back and that you are safe. Also, peep those beautiful Yonaka coilovers. At this point, I did remove our intake and snorkel assembly. It's just two Torx on either side. Then we can remove our plug from the rad fan, as well as this upper coolant hose. Now be careful, this thing is prone to breaking. Mine has been replaced, but always a good idea to be careful. And we want to just swing that out of the way here. And I have gone and driven the vehicle up on ramps here just to give us some room. And our next step is going to be to remove our bottom tray, which mine ever so graciously for some reason doesn't have, so that's not ideal. Now you will have some bolts for your bottom tray. They are 8 mils. There's about 20 of them, and you just need to remove this center section of the tray up to your bumper. And then our next step is going to be to remove our intercooler here. You can have a Torx bolt on either side here. I believe it's a 25, Torx 25, and then you just have these quick release couplers, so pop that out. And then you should be able to remove your intercooler piping. Once you remove these quick couplers, just simply pry this metal out and pop it off. Then we'll have access to our rad right above, and the drain should be, I believe, on the driver's side, but we can confirm when we get there. So start disassembling here. All right, so we have let it cool down a bit. We removed our cap, and we're now going to remove our fan shroud here. We removed our upper bolt here. It's hard to see and it's pretty tight, but your charge pipe here has a little rubber connection to your fan shroud. I just got a nice pry bar and pressed that away. Then underneath, in our case, we have an automatic transmission. So we did just have to unbolt this one Torx here for our transmission cooler, and we have to swing that out of the way. This next step might be easier with two people, so We do have to wiggle this fan shroud up, so you may need someone at the top wiggling while someone underneath kind of guides and moves everything out of the way. You want to be careful not to flex this too much, it can break, and you can also damage all the fins on your intercooler and your old radiator. And then we're pretty much set to start removing our intercooler here. So start ripping this fan shroud out and just be careful. Again, don't want to damage your intercooler, that is a bad time. Hey guys, so we're underneath the car here. We removed our two intercooler pipes here. Good thing to keep in mind, the metal ring here is part of the piping and the intercooler is all plastic. So once you pop this little metal tab down, you're able to wedge a little screwdriver in between this metal ring and the plastic piping. That's how you know where to start prying. Otherwise, if it's dirty like mine, it's pretty hard to tell. Also, good time to mention, not a bad idea to have eye protection on when you're under your car, because apparently mine's done some off-roading. Other than that, I have removed my rad hoses since I am replacing those, so that's why I have mine dangling off. And then right above you here, this is the mounting bolt for the intercooler, and that's going to be the drain for your radiator. So go ahead and pop that out, and those are prone to stripping or snapping. Worst case, if you come down to it, you can just pop one of your rad hoses out and drain it that way. So something to keep in mind. Our next step is going to be removing these two lower hoses here and here, and there is a single Torx holding these on, and once you undo those, they just pop right out. On this side at your transcooler, it is possible to just pop this hose out and remove this one with the radiator. So a couple ways you can go at doing this, but we're pretty much drained now, almost. I'm going to pop this drain off the radiator, make sure it's completely empty, pop those hoses off, and then we can pull our rad out. So after a bit of wrestling, we managed to get all our hoses off. So our lower rad hose I disconnected here. Ideally, you're going to want to remove it up here for you guys. You're not replacing that. Our lower fitting to the thermostat, we went ahead and unbolted here, popped that out. On the driver's side, we disconnected our upper rad hose here at the housing, as well as this lower hose here, again, because we are replacing this one. And then the lower hose here I just disconnected from the transmission cooler. So we are ready to unbolt the rad, which is going to be one bolt there, as well as one over here. And then we should be able to swing this rad up and out. We can compare it to our new one. So pretty straightforward, pretty easy. The hardest part is getting these hoses out. If you are reusing these, you do need to keep in mind these are multiple pieces, so you do have an O-ring here as well as a little cone, and you may have issues putting these hoses onto the new rad or connecting them back to the housing here. So you will have to lubricate these with some fresh coolant, and that will help them slide on. You want to make sure that they are seated all the way so these clips can sit in these grooves. So bit of a learning curve if this is your first time playing with BMW hoses, but it is very straightforward. You just pry up here. These will lock up into an open position, and then you are able to pop these off. Some do require some persuasion, so keep that in mind. But they are also plastic, so don't go snapping anything. Just be careful, be mindful of what you're doing, and should be pretty straightforward. So we're going to go ahead and remove our rad now. Alright, so at this point it is very straightforward. We just swap those hoses for the lower ones over, then we get our new rad hoses and put them on, and we are pretty much set. We're going to slide our new rad in and be very careful not to damage it. So now keep in mind, these are the little feet that it does sit on in the bottom rad support, so you got to line those up and then drop this in. You want to be careful while doing this not to damage your AC condenser. And it's also not a bad idea to brush that out if you do have a bunch of stuff in there, so either hose it or use an air gun. But if you do that, make sure you do cover your intercooler piping. You don't need that stuff going into your engine. We're almost done. The hard part is over. A lot of these hoses do seize to the radiator, which I did run into for this one. We're gonna go ahead and swap those two fittings over at the bottom and then slam this in. Alright, so we went ahead, we got our radiator in. We did not have the rad fans on. Turns out it does not fit, so do have to remove the shroud with the fans. As far as it goes now, we got our bolts in holding the radiator way over there. And it's pretty straightforward from here on out. We just have to connect our hoses here. We have the one down here. This one bolts on the outside of the shroud, so we'll have to slide that on and then pop that in. And then basically put our new rad hoses on. So again, when you're installing these, you are gonna have to lube up those O-rings inside of the hose I showed. Pull everything out from where I tucked it. And then we put our new shroud in, make sure we bolt that in, everything's nice, tight, and secured. Make sure that we have adequate clearance between any of our hoses and the pulleys. And then we get to put our trans cooler up here and somehow secure that. And then we get to start filling it up and do the bleeding process. So, pretty straightforward, so let's get her done. Alright, so once you have everything together, you have your shrouds in, everything's nice and happy, your next step is going to be to bleed the cooling system. So you want to make sure you're using BMW approved coolant. Then you are going to have to remove this bleeder screw, or you can just crack it loose. And then you do want to fill it up until it is nice and happy and floating. Slam the cap on and tighten down your bleeder screw. And then we can hop inside the car, and it is not a bad idea to put it on a battery charger. This takes about 10 minutes. Take your key, slot it in, and without starting the car, hit the start button. And you want to make sure that you have your temps all the way up, your fan speed down to low. Then you just push down your gas pedal for about 10 seconds. And then you should hear, very faintly, the water pump starts going. And then you basically just let it run its course. You can take your foot off the gas pedal. And just make sure that your battery doesn't die. And then once it stops making noise, that you're ready to go. Once it's done bleeding, check your coolant level. And if you have to, top it up, and then you're pretty much set. Alright guys, this is what the rad looks like, and it is absolutely beautiful. Throw everything together and she just needs a good wipe down and a cleaning. Alright guys, so that's the rad and the fans installed, and honestly they're amazing. They look great and they work even better, so I couldn't be any happier. The rad fans, there's about a million ways you guys could wire those up. You could wire them up to a temp sensor, so they come on at a certain temp. You could do it to ignition. It kind of depends on your vehicle and how you drive it and what you use it for, so keep that in mind. You could probably use your factory fan in there since everything's an OE fit, and it will just plug and play. However, if you're paying for the rad fans and the shroud, you may as well have that in there, and there's a lot more space with the Yonaka rad fans, so strongly recommend using them and just wiring them in. So not an issue there. It's pretty straightforward. So thank you, Yonaka. Couldn't be any happier, and I hope this helped you guys out. So catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.